giving you a little bit of an opportunity to take a little bit longer if you need it, especially since I wanted to talk about the research paper. So the first thing I want to do is take us to our front page. And we have, as you begin to think about revolutionary writing, the secret of a writer's soul, every quality of his mind is written up in his works. So that's something to think about. All right, so I would like to begin with what is revolutionary writing. Revolutions begin with ideas, often the written word, not weapons. Some of the most famous speeches are transcribed and printed. These writings can be long and eloquent or short and pointed. What makes writing revolutionary is that it is transformative. It means that it changes. These changes can be far-reaching or just within a community. What makes them revolutionary is that they spur people on to break cultural, social, and political norms in order to create meaningful change. So you're going to see that in the novel, The Help, but you're also going to see it in the research paper. And so I have the journaling suggestions for your first blog post. What's going to be different about this particular blog is that it is going to be the last blog that you do over the next 3 modules. And then here we have Not a Revolution of One, How Sampling Transformed Music. And this is going to take you to a form where you're going to be looking at finding sources and also looking at this music video about sampling and thinking about how writers inform one another and how texts inform one another. That we are all a product of our time and place and also of ideas, the collective ideas and writings of others. So I am now going to take you to our research paper handout here. And we have a little overview about how writing in our novel is used to change society, which you are going to be reading. And so we're going to be looking at how writing is a revolutionary act. I want to point out that we're going to be focusing in on that writing actually enacts and creates identities and ideologies. Identifying as a writer does give you power and an opportunity to develop your own unique voice. That we as writers enter and exit conversations, all of us. Research is often part of scholarly writing. You've done some research a little bit here and there for your other writing projects, but this writing project is specifically a research project. And then active inquiry throughout reading and writing helps people to actually work on the text in a way that is active as opposed to passive and helps you deepen your own understanding. So there are 3 prompt options, 1, 2, or 3. And they all have some similarities in that you are going to be using primary sources. You have to have 5 samples regardless of which one you choose. And that will be your primary source. And then you're also going to look up secondary sources, which are sources that you use that are about the primary source. The definition of a primary source is that primary means that something has been created at the time, okay? A secondary source is a source that is writing about a primary source. So sometimes sources can be both, but in this situation, it's going to be very clear the difference between primary and secondary sources. So there are 3 choices, and one is to look at one particular type of writing that is used to instigate change, such as speeches, laws, pamphlets, mainstream newspapers, underground newspapers, leaflets, or social media. Social media is the one that does not have a very long history, but it has been around since 2006, so it does count. So what's going to happen is once you've chosen the type, you need to come up with 5 samples of that type, but from different time periods. So if it's a speech, you can come up with very different time periods. Social media, though, you have the 12 years, and so you do need to have some from each part of those 12 years if you choose that. And then what you're going to do is that for each piece, you're going to analyze what was going on before in order to investigate the writing. You're going to analyze the meaning of the piece and then analyze what occurred as a result of the writing. And then finally, you're going to argue whether or not this type of writing does or does not make lasting changes. Okay? Number 2 is very similar to number 1, but instead of just looking at one type of writing and its impact, you're going to be looking at a time and place in history, or you can investigate right here, right now, if you'd like. And you're going to look at how writing is or was used to make changes. Again, you have the 5 samples. You're going to analyze what they mean within the context and discuss why they were written. And you're going to then argue, however, which type of writing seemed to have made the most impact and why. So you need to choose different types of writing. So maybe a speech, maybe a pamphlet, maybe a leaflet, maybe a scholarly article that was written at the time. And then number 3 is actually probably the most difficult to potentially wrap your head around, but it is the most personal. So earlier today in our Zoom meeting, the students who were here were very interested in this type, and we talked about types of writing that you could use. And this one is for you to investigate the types of writing that you will have to do in your career that could be characterized as revolutionary writing, and find at least 5 samples. And then you're also going to analyze each piece, why it was written, and then talk about how each of these changes potentially make a difference, right? So I'm going to use my own career as an example. So I'm an English teacher, and 2 pieces right off the bat, and there are several, okay? English is being taught very differently than the way it was taught when I was a student. So even in my career, things have changed. But 2 things that I'm thinking about. One is about contract grading. And contract grading is helping to focus grades, focus on grades less, focus more on the process and giving feedback. So grades become less important, and what becomes more important is participation. So that was a big piece that was written by Peter Elbow and introduced into the world probably, 20 years ago or so. And it's actually currently beginning to pick up a lot of steam. Something that was written more recently and passed is Law AB 705, which stipulates that students are not to be placed in developmental writing courses, that they are either to be placed in college level writing with some support or college level writing itself, but that classes below are not to be used for credit. I guess you're allowed to take classes up to a year, and then that way students aren't taking several classes before they take the college level English. And that's also true of math. And that piece of writing is instigating a revolutionary change, a big one that I would talk about. So if this is for you and you have some specific questions about the types of writing or what you could potentially do, you are more than welcome to email me, and I'm happy to answer those particular questions. I did answer questions today with students, and I have students in my face-to-face class who came up to me and talked with me about how to do that as well. You're also welcome to come and visit me during office hours as well. So before I end, I want to showcase a couple of other items. We have different pieces. We have a proposal template where you are going to turn in 1 and 2 of this proposal template. I'm going to open it up, and the proposal template begins with asking you what topic you are interested in and why you're interested in it and how you plan to pursue it. I'm waiting for it to come up. I will tell you that in order to make your own copy, you go to File and you choose Make a Copy. So I'm going to click on here so that maybe this will open up. It's still lagging a little bit, and that's okay. But you choose File, make a copy, and then you can type on your own. So we're looking at 1 and 2. I'm interested in blank because of blank, and how do I plan to pursue it? Number 3 and 4, you will be working on. It's dealing with the sources here. But number 1 and 2 are asking you about what you're interested in doing. Let me show you since this is finally up. You click on File. There we go. You click on Make a Copy, and then you have your own copy to type on. So that is the proposal. Number 2 is talking about the different sources beyond the required samples. You have to come up with 4 secondary sources beyond the required primary samples. And there's a discussion here of what these types of sources need to be. I am probably going to have another session just to talk about sources. There's a part where you're going to then do your own pre-writing, and I have several handouts here that you could choose to use to help you deal with your sources and put them together. We get to the project, and each part of the project is a specific part in and of itself. It is very similar to writing an essay, except that there is a method section which explains how you research the topic so that somebody else could research it if they decided they wanted to. 4D is the facts and discussion, where you're showcasing your sources and discussing how they're relevant to answering the prompt, and then you have a conclusion. And there's a peer review, etc. And so this is your research project that you're going to be working on between now and almost the end of the semester. So that is all, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you.